Let's head on to the uh, this prehistoric article from Sci News, by the way, which we have done a video on YouTube, but we're just reading it again so everybody or more people can hear about this discovery. So, seven fossil hunting expeditions in Tanzania, Zambia yield surprising results. So, this is taking place over in eastern and southern sub-Saharan Africa. Newly discovered fossils from 10 million years after the end Permian mass extinction reveal a lineage of animals thought to have led to dinosaurs in what is now Tanzania and Zambia. So, yeah, it is interesting. Many people just tend to be accustomed to being familiar with the wildlife in these different regions, but there are quite a few fossils that come out of sub Saharan Africa, especially from the Permian and the Triassic mouse. Mouse.
Mouse?
Yeah, the mouse.
The Jurassic mouse?
There it is. Yes, there so far there isn't any evidence for mice existing back in the Triassic, and definitely not the Permian. Let's see. Um, okay, so in this specific picture, this is probably an early relative of the dinosaurs and not a true dinosaur itself. This is probably an early member of the Archosauromorph lineage, which would give rise to the dinosaurs, crocodilomorphs. So in turn, the crocodilians of today and the flying pterosaurs, as well as even certain marine reptiles. It's quite a large group. And then in the background, we have an Arizonosaurus. So this animal is also, despite it having a very elongated sail and technically a back vertebra, um, this animal is not closely related to the Spinosaurus during the early late Cretaceous period or any of the Spinosaurs. And as well, this animal is not closely related to the proto-mammal Dimetrodon back in the early Permian. So, or any of the, maybe a little closer to the Adaphosaurus that the Dimetrodon might have hunted, but not Dimetrodon itself, despite looking somewhat similar to an extent. So this individual is the Acylosaurus, which is around 9 feet long or pushing 3 meters. So the new data come from 7 expeditions since 2003 in Tanzania and Zambia.
No, no. The new data, which would have which came from
Yeah, I've caught with Sign News. There's a bit of issues in comprehension. Let's see. So the new data came from 7 expeditions since 2003 in Tanzania and Zambia, along with work combing through existing fossil collections. Professor Christian Sider from the University of Washington, who is first author of the paper reporting the results online in the proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, explained the fossil record from the Karoo of South Africa remains a good representation of four-legged land animals across southern Pangaea, the massive supercontinent back during the Permian, the Triassic, and was already splitting by the time the Jurassic period arrived, so that would have been around 201 million years ago. Okay, across southern Pangaea before the extinction event. But after the event, animals weren't as uniformly and widely distributed as before. We had to go looking in some fairly unorthodox places. Professor Christian Sider and his colleagues, headed by Dr. Linda Tsui, also from the University of Washington, created two snapshots of four legged animals about 5 million years before, and again about 10 million years after the Earth's largest mass extinction, about 252 million years ago. Yeah, it is interesting how much worse, to an extent, the Permian mass extinction was compared to the late Cretaceous. Though it does seem that the late Cretaceous was the second worst extinction to occur, at least during this Phanerozoic era, which means for the past 530 million years. Let's see. So prior to the extinction event, for example, the pig-sized Dicynodon was a dominant plant-eating species across southern Pangaea. So this is probably a member of the Dicynod I don't remember. No, the Cynodont lineage of proto-mammals, which were very close relatives of modern mammals and probably gave rise to them as well. It was just a specific small group of the Cynodonts. Um, Wait a second, Dicynodont. That would indicate there would be a Dicynodont, which is still closely related to the, mammals. Actually, um, look up a Placerius. So Placearias. This is a large animal that didn't exist during this time of the Basilosaurus and Arizonosaurus, which is around 242 million years ago. This animal wouldn't appear in Arizona until somewhere around 220 million years ago. So this is toward the end of the mid-Triassic, um, or even the beginning of the late Triassic. So this is from a snapshot 1999 series Walking with Dinosaurs in the first episode. And these animals were one of the largest herbivores at that time, and even in Arizona itself. Placerius could weigh somewhere around 2,000 to 2,500 pounds, or somewhere between 1,000 to 1,200 kilograms. And this animal also had few predators on the landscape. I'd say by full grown, there wasn't really much, at least that we know of at the moment. Okay, well, technically, as number, there were few predators that could take it on. There was a large crocodilomorph that existed in different river systems. That was no, it was not a crocodilomorph. It was a phytosaur. This group of phytosaurs can be confused with crocodilomorphs. Let's pull up
Wait a
also.
minute, is this a toy?
No, it's just a model, but I do need another animal, which is the Smilosuchus. So Smilosuchus.
Okay, I'm looking for a good one.
Um, this animal or the, predator that I'm talking about could reach somewhere around 20 feet in length or pushing 6 meters and probably weigh close to the same amount as Placeris or probably even more. So we could have a predator that's somewhere around 2,500 to 3,000 pounds or, pushing around 1,400 kilograms. So, this animal, it does have a very similar jaw structure to certain types of crocodilomorphs, or even if you look at certain, crocodilomorphs or well, technically crocodilians today are crocodilomorphs, but it's like the Garrel, except the Garrel is not really meant for taking on larger animals. It's specifically designed for going after fish. It has a very thin and brittle jaw structure. But, the Phytosaurs, they can have a somewhat sort of thin and narrow jaw structure, but they were capable of taking on much larger animals. For instance, this Idosaur which is also a descendant of the Archosauromorph lineage of reptiles. But, these animals would thrive throughout the Triassic period. However, they would mysteriously just go extinct at the end of the period around 202 million years ago. And in the background, it's either a Herrerasaur or close relative of Herrerasaurus, the Styracosaurus, which is one of the earliest species of dinosaurs to exist, and specifically theropod dinosaurs. These animals were somewhere around 5 to 7 feet in length, or barely reaching a little over 2.2 meters, and probably didn't weigh much more than 90 pounds, or a little over 40 kilograms.
Wait, what are we talking about now?
It was a little theropod dinosaur in the background.
Oh, I kinda changed.
Oh, well, focusing on the Phytosaur or the Smilasuchus, what this specific genus is, this animal preyed on Placarius. I don't know if there's any evidence for certain Placarius bones having bite marks from a Smilasuchus, but the animal was certainly capable of doing so. So Placerius would have to be quite careful in different river systems, even if it was traveling in a herd, which it's a bit of a question as to whether or not Placerius did migrate in a herd. There is the Cleveland not the Cleveland quarry, the Placerius quarry over in Arizona that hosts quite a number of Placerius. In fact, I think there's around 30 different specimens at least, maybe even like 36 in this specific. But elsewhere where Placerius is found, and I think even other relatives of the Placerius, like Dicynodonts that are found in Poland, South Africa, they tend to be solitary, at least by themselves.
This one's good.
So was it like a herd of females and maybe the males were loners? Oh, yeah, in this instance. This might be a bit challenging and risky for the, Smilasuchus to go after the Placerius at this point because, um just this many at once could likely kill both the Smilodon individuals. So they would probably just wait until, they're also in deeper water and they're by themselves. So you can still have it where even back then, despite these animals having smaller brains than today's modern mammals or even birds.
I think it depends what mammal you're talking about.
Yeah, that's true. I guess you could say even raccoons occasionally can be a little too, or not as intelligent as you would expect. But, some squirrels too. Let's see, what are we getting at? Actually, you can even point it to certain elephants. It's like in certain areas where it's a bit obvious that it's quite dense in crocodile numbers, you would think that they would, stop the area to make sure that there isn't any to bite their trunks. But you can also
You're
think,
referencing under the water?
yeah, but you also have to take into account, is this occurring during the dry season? Do they just not want to muck up the water and, keep it somewhat clean?
They don't wanna drink dirty water.
Well, there are instances where elephants will go over, especially during the dry season, to these stagnant pools, meaning that their dung and other animals' dung is just polluting the area, yet they will still grasp the very tip of the surface of the water and drink from it, which I think is still quite risky. But that is until a couple of bull elephants show or, male elephants show up and just ruin the whole,
When they
um
decimate them?
yeah, just decimate the whole water supply. Yeah, it's not that it was good to start with, but, um, what was I getting with that? Oh, I think what I was trying to make it out with or out like was you could have it where Placerius might come over to drink or they're crossing a river, and let's say one does get bit by a Smilasuchus, but the herd actually does coordinate with each other and they help out that specific individual. It's very possible. Certain herd animals tend to be a bit more, I'd say, like, caring or watchful than others.
You
Um,
mean over each other?
yeah, sometimes it even depends on the herd, but it's certainly possible with the Placarius in this instance. And the Placarius also were herbivores, so they were mainly just feeding on different, species of ferns, and, flowers had not evolved yet, any type of flowering plant.
I like where you said "were" because I've heard people speaking of prehistoric animals and say "are."
Oh,
I
well,
always think that's funny because they are dead. So they are not
yeah, I think it depends on the situation, maybe what you're talking about, but yeah, they were over in Arizona 220,000,000 years
no,
ago.
no, they're still over.
Oh, yeah, they're just dead. Um, so where was I getting with this? No, it is interesting. It is showing them a bit more of a frill. Well, that's because Placeris did technically have a bit of a frill, which is interesting because you don't really see this trait again until the ceratopsians start evolving, but actually later into the ceratopsian lineage. So the animals I'm talking about are, in fact, let's look up a ceratopsian.
That is a proto, isn't it?
Actually, we look up a Zuniceratops. It lived earlier. Okay, so Zuniceratops.
I never would have gotten that.
Wait, what were you asking though about it earlier?
They are proto mammals, right?
Yes, but they did not give rise to the mammals. Mammals had also already evolved at this point, but they were also egg layers too. So, um, where was I getting at? Hmm. Seems to be an AI one, but it's not bad for a Zuniceratops. Seems to be given a little bit of a Torosaurus sort of a look, but also you could say Zuniceratops had a bit of a Torosaurus or even a somewhat Pentaceratops sort of look to it. This animal inhabited the United States, I think also New Mexico specifically, around 90 to 92 years ago during the beginning of the late Cretaceous. So, this is definitely far after the ceratopsians first evolved, so which is somewhere around 165,000,000 years ago, which is also around the same time the first tyrannosaurs that would lead to animals such as T. rex and Tarbosaurus.
Looking for someone doing an actual of it.
That's when they first evolved as well, and even early species of ankylosaurs, so club tail animals. such as the Kylosaurus and their close relatives, the spiked tail-spiked nodosaurs, which are different from the stegosaurs. So let's see, where's it getting at with this?
Uh,
Oh,
fine.
so, Zuniceratops I was actually going to, have you pull up somebody else.
Some of them just look so much like cartoon characters.
Yeah, it can happen, especially with Zuniceratops. But I don't understand that with many. Oh, okay, this guy. No, he was not meant to be portrayed as a cartoon character. This is from the, 2001 documentary. 2000? I think it was possibly it was 2000. When Dinosaurs Roamed America by Discovery. It's a great documentary. And this is supposed to be a Zuniceratops that's fighting off a pack of dromaeosaurs, which were an unnamed species, unfortunately. There is no specific, genus or species for the predators that were portrayed in this scenario. But, Zuniceratops could reach somewhere around 11 to 12 feet in length. They're pushing, um, almost 4 meters.
Do you want me to pull something else up?
Oh, right. And, let's do Protoceratops. So Protoce. And this animal also didn't really have as a heavily built frill, compared to its body size like later species of ceratopsian. There's still quite a formidable, shield. Now,
I know this is from a game, but
the holes that you see in the skull would have been filled with tissue. Oh, okay, yeah, so from, I guess, Jurassic World Evolution 3? These are somewhat decent to Protoceratops. I think the child youngster, yeah, the feet might be a bit off. They're huge.
what about this guy?
It's interesting. I haven't seen a Protoceratops youngster that looks like this. They actually gave it feathers along the tip of its tail, unless or actually most of its tail, unless it's supposed to represent a different lineage, which is certainly possible. Now, it is likely that Protoceratops youngsters had much smaller frills or barely a frill, so the exterior the back of their skull, that would have protected their neck later on somewhat, um, mainly due to a preserved incident of where a velociraptor and Protoceratops were trapped in time, and I think there's a situation where the velociraptor is pushing its toe claw or its sickle claw into the Protoceratops's neck, while the Protoceratops is grabbing onto its arm. But, Protoceratops was a lot smaller compared to Uniceratops. Uniceratops could probably reach somewhere around 400 pounds at least, or a little over 190 kilograms. Protoceratops was also so you would have had it where Uniceratops was roaming different types of conifer forests over in, um, New Mexico during the early Late Cretaceous period, whereas Protoceratops would have probably inhabited different, maybe slightly forested landscapes in the midst of different areas of deserts in the Gobi Desert of Mongolia around 70 million years ago. So this was far after, Zuniceratops had evolved, and despite these smaller ceratopsians appearing toward the end of the Cretaceous period, you would have already had a wide range of different smaller species of ceratopsians back in the early Cretaceous and late Jurassic, but they would have looked similar to this animal. Not much of a frill. Really, the only defense it had was probably its beak. I'm not going to consider running, but, you could say that could benefit it in a lot of instances. Possibly, it might have even burrowed, and these animals were probably feeding on some of the earliest species of flowers to exist, if you're talking about the earlier species of ceratopsians. Not
Wait a minute, when
including the
did
ones
flowers evolve?
somewhere around 140 to 145 million years ago at the beginning of the Cretaceous period. Late Jurassic ceratopsians would not have fed on flowers unless they survived the mass extinction.
Want me to close this all out?
Oh, head back to the Protoceratops. I,
That was a Protoceratops?
what is it?
Oh,
Let's see, was there oh, okay. So this animal was probably around, 8 feet in length or what, 2.3 meters, and probably weighed somewhere around 300 pounds or a little over, 140 kilograms, and was probably feeding on different species of fern in the area, and probably, seeked out certain water sources, and especially, there would have been a wide range. Well, I mentioned the water sources because there would have been different areas of massive deserts, but, what was it? It did coexist with many larger species of dinosaurs in the area. In fact, it was one of the smaller species who had large therizinosaurs in the region, different species of large hadrosaurs or duck-billed dinosaurs, as well as certain species of sauropod coexisting with it, and as well, different types of large pterosaurs and tyrannosaurs in the region. So let's head back to the article.
Want me to get rid of this?
Yes. So, catching up back in the Triassic, early Triassic. So Pangea is the name given to the landmass when all the world's continents were joined together. Southern Pangea was made up of what is today Africa, South America, Antarctica, Australia, and India. After the mass extinction at the end of the Permian, Dicynodon disappeared, and other related species were so greatly decreased that newly emerging herbivores could suddenly compete with them. Groups that did well before the extinction didn't necessarily do well afterward. What we call evolutionary incumbency was fundamentally reset. So I'm guessing that the Dicynodon is probably a close relative to the Permian Triassic Lystrosaurus, possibly survived the Permian mass extinction. It actually had a wide range of different types of reptiles, proto-mammals, different types of insects, fishes that would have survived the mass extinction. So here's probably what it's definitely a close relative of the Lystrosaurus. So this is the Dicynodon. And he is technically distantly related to animals like beavers, um, but he's definitely not a close relative. So the snapshot 10 million years after the extinction event reveals that archosaurs were in Tanzanian and Zambian basins, referring to the fossil formation areas, but not distributed across all of southern Pangaea, as had been the pattern for four-legged animals prior to the extinction. Archosaurs are the group of reptiles that includes crocodiles, dinosaurs, birds, and a variety of extinct forms. They are of interest because it is thought they led to animals like the Astylosaurus, a dinosaur-like animal. So this is probably a dinosaur, and Niasaurus paratungni, a dog-sized creature with a 5-foot tail that scientists in December 2012 announced could be the earliest dinosaur, or else the closest relative found so far. I believe recently there has been an earlier species of dinosaur has been discovered. It's just not hitting me the name. Early archosaurs being found mainly in Tanzania is an example of how fragmented communities became after the extinction event. New framework for analyzing biogeographic patterns from species distributions developed by co-author Daryl Vallinet provided a way to discern the complex recovery. It revealed that before the extinction event, 35% of four-legged species were found in two or more of the five areas studied, with some species having ranges that stretch 1,600 miles or 2,600 kilometers, encompassing the Tanzanian and South African basins. 10 million years after the extinction event, there was a clear geographic clustering, and just 7% of species were found in two or more regions. Whoa, okay, you could say there are just insects alone, there's 2 million species on Earth today, but that's still a massive hit. I mean, just that's the number that's left after the mass extinction. That's immense. And the fact that you still had it were different larger organisms that need an immense amount of, more much larger amount of food, shelter, or at least, territory compared to, something like an insect, survived is quite amazing. So, yes, it's good to go over. Let's head over to the next video. Hmm, what is going on here? We're very close to the tree. Is this in South America? There he is. Don't tell anybody. There's my lunch. Okay, he's definitely going after a caiman. I'm guessing it's over in the Pantanal ecosystem over in Western Brazil.
Hold on, I'm gonna go back. I blew it up.
That was a pretty good leap.
But he's on it.
He took his time too. Leopards tend to be a lot more explosive with that, or in that sort of instance. And also probably the water helps. Caiman can't swim anywhere as fast in the water as say, an impala or Thompson's gazelle can run on land. It shouldn't take too long. And caimans are a very necessary food source for jaguars. The caimans are mostly feeding on different species of fish, maybe other types of reptiles, occasionally smaller
He
mammals.
came up for a breath, and then everything rolled over and have it.
Oh gosh, yeah, I guess that was too slow of a pounce, or it was just I'm not sure if he could have made that any better, but just not the right area to stalk the caiman. Hmm, Gosh, okay, we were just there. Alrighty. So from phys.org, football-sized fossil creature may have been one of the first land animals to eat plants. Well, let's take a look at this. I am assuming that this is taking place during the Carboniferous period, so over 320 million years ago. Question is, where and who on Earth is this? Looks like a something between an amphibian and a reptile. Um, and interesting. He's definitely evolved quite complex teeth. Very distinct primitive teeth first started evolving during the Devonians, over 360. I say around somewhere between 365 and 375 million years ago, with early lobe-finned fish, or the first um, somewhat terrestrial tetrapods. Okay, so let's take a deeper look. So a reconstruction of Tyrannosaurus eating a fern. Life on Earth started in the ocean sometime around 475 million years ago. Plants began making their way from the water onto the land, and it took another 100 million years for the first animals with backbones to join them. For tens of millions of years, these early land-dwelling creatures only ate their fellow animals rather than grazing on greenery. It is interesting when you look at some of the first creatures; they were quite carnivorous, and then all of a sudden they decided to just start becoming vegetarian. And it is interesting that even like the largest creatures to exist are carnivores. Well, largest animals specifically, which I guess creatures only lie or only falls into that specific branch of organisms. Let's see. In a paper in the journal Nature Ecology and Evolution, scientists described 307 million-year-old fossil of one of the earliest known land vertebrates that evolved the ability to eat plants. Okay, well, I was off definitely on the time. I was just thinking of carnivores and not herbivores. It is amazing how much later herbivory evolved. This is one of the oldest known four-legged animals to eat its veggies, says Arhan Man. Now, I will say that vegetables, specifically like these type of plants, had not evolved yet. Assistant curator of fossil fishes and early tetrapods at the Field Museum in Chicago and co-lead author of the study. It shows that experimentation with herbivory goes all the way back to the earliest terrestrial tetrapods, the ancient relatives of all land vertebrates, including us. Yes, tetrapods like Tiktaalik would give rise to different types of amphibians, reptiles, the dinosaurs, birds, and mammals, proto-mammals. This specimen is the first of its group to receive a detailed 3D reconstruction, which allowed us to look inside its skull and reveal its specialized teeth, helping us to trace the origin of terrestrial herbivory, says Zhaivang Zhang, a PhD student at the University of Toronto and co-lead author of the paper. So I'm guessing that's the skull or 3D print of the skull. So, the researchers named the new species Tyrannosaurus herberti, meaning Herbert's tyrant digger, in honor of its discoverer Brian Herbert Hebert. Did I say Herberta? The animal's skull is the only part that scientists have found, but based on the size of its head and the more complete skeletons of its relatives, Tyrannosaurus was probably a stocky four-legged creature about a foot long. It was roughly the size and shape of an American football. By modern standards, that's not terribly large, but it was one of the largest land-dwelling animals of its time. I mean, that's decent for, the Carbonivorous or the late Carbonivorous, but there were much larger creatures during this time period. I mean, we had individuals reaching over 11 feet or length, yeah, around 11 feet or, just over 3 meters, and they were carnivorous. So let's see. Tyrannosaurus probably looked a little like a lizard, but it lived before the ancestors of reptiles and mammals split off from each other, so it technically wasn't a reptile. The team found Tyrannosaurus on Cape Breton Island, Nova Scotia, under harsh fieldwork conditions. Nova Scotia has the highest tides in the world. When we're working there, we're racing against the tide. When the ocean comes in, it's very rocky and the fossils are in cliffs on the shore. Paleontologists hate excavating in cliffs because the cliff could come down on you. That's very common to, excavate on cliffs. That's funny, especially over, like, the Badlands of Montana and South Dakota. Well, that's a skull. Brian Hebert, an avocational biologist, paleontologist from Nova Scotia, discovered the small skull in a fossilized tree stump during a field season led by Hilary Madden, a professor of paleontology at Carleton University. The skull was wide and heart-shaped, really narrow at the snout, but really wide at the back. Within 5 seconds of looking at it, I was like, "Oh, that's a pangolin microsaur." The pantalids are a fairly early chapter in the story of vertebrate animals living on land. When lobe-finned fish first evolved limbs that let them scoot onto the land, they still depended largely on their watery homes. Oh, definitely. In fact, at first, they could barely um, walk onto land. I mean, it was a somewhat um, sort of push up that they would have created, but besides that, they would have to immediately return to the water. So the pantalids are from the second phase of terrestriality, when animals became permanently adapted to life on dry land. Now, I will say though that the Carbonivorous, for the most part, was extremely humid. So animals like different species of amphibians, even certain types of reptiles, would have not had to worry about any dry conditions. Not that that couldn't have occurred, but it was definitely a very wet time.
Basically, it was like hanging out in parts of Florida or here.
Somewhat, but definitely there weren't doesn't seem for the most part, any seasons throughout much of the world.
Oh, so it was just
It
straight.
was, yeah, tropical the entire year, but a different type of, sort of tropical climate than what you see today. So, there were scientists call stem amniotes, animals closely related to the group of tetrapods that evolved eggs that could stay dry outside of water. In later years, these stem amniotes would split into reptiles and the early ancestors of mammals. Yeah, there was a lot going on in the, Carboniferous period. A man prepared the specimen by carefully chipping away rock from the fossilized bone, but the skull had fossilized with its mouth closed. This happens a lot with different, specimens of prehistoric animals that are discovered, and luckily, the skull was found. That's, in many cases, not common to find, especially with new species. Usually, it's, like, part of a vertebrae, and not even, like, a whole vertebrae intact, literally just a sliver of it.
Disc.
Yeah, that would be the proper term, as well as maybe part of the leg bone or specifically, like, tibia or shin bone, maybe the femur or thigh bone, um, maybe a tooth, but that in a lot of cases is pretty much it.
I like when you tell me that they named an entire dinosaur and they found one little piece of it.
Yeah, that actually happens a lot, and it's annoying with any species of dinosaur, but when something like a new species of theropod or, so a carnivorous dinosaur like Spinosaurus or T-Rex, or a large sauropod like Brachiosaurus or Argentinosaurus, and it's based off of that, it's really annoying. And you can have it where later on, it turns out just to be another specimen of an already named genus. Let's see. But the skull had fossilized okay, so and internal sections like its brain case remain hidden. To see inside the skull, the researchers CT scanned it, producing a series of snackable X-ray images to generate a 3D picture. Oh, well, I guess let's see what they found. I guess something to do with the feeding behavior change.
Wish there won't be a picture in here.
Yeah, I'm guessing not. Oh, it's
Well,
certainly
you don't
possible.
pre-read these, so
We were most excited to see what was hidden inside the mouth of this animal once it was scanned. A mouth jam-packed with a whole additional set of teeth for crushing fine food like plants. Well, the other thing is that you need much sharper teeth for slicing plants than you do meat. So this is a very distinct pathway in evolution. Now, of course, the negative is going to be um, you're probably a lot more susceptible to change than meat eaters. So let's see. That also depends on the meat eater's what food supply as well.
got his mood.
I don't think that's what I was pronouncing, but these teeth, including ones on the roof of its mouth, hint that our stem amniote tetrapod relatives were eating plants sooner than scientists had previously thought. Tyrannosaurus herberti is of great interest because it was long thought that herbivory was restricted to amniotes. It is a stem amniote but has a specialized dentition that can be used for processing plant fodder. So, interesting. It says Hans Su, senior research geologist and curator of vertebrate paleontology at the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History and co-author of the study. Alrighty, so um, yeah, this is quite interesting. That's not to say that Tyrannosaurus ate only plants. When Hans Sues was my advisor during my postdoctoral fellowship at the Smithsonian, he'd always say that just about all herbivores alive today consume at least some animal protein, and that herbivory is best seen as a gradient. That is true, because when first of all, there are the instances when you're looking at different herbivores like deer, different members of the bovid family, or cows, bison. Who else? Elephants occasionally, camels, they're one of the main ones, but they all usually will, go over to some bones from, like, some long gone carcass and feed off of those bones and to extract calcium from, that bone source.
Tried that, my teeth don't like
Yeah, humans, it's a bit different with our teeth, but, also when it comes to carcasses and even live birds, it is not, unheard of for animals like horses, camels, deer especially to eat the birds, and tends to be due to a protein deficiency. But, let's see, what's another thing? Yeah, camels are also a bit notorious for eating dead carcasses, so it is very interesting. Now you also have it where these animals are eating plant material, but you can have it where there are small insects or even different organisms on the plants. That's technically omnivory. It's just to a less, um, seen extent. Let's see.
I think you showed me a video a while back of a bird eat not a bird eating, a horse eating a bird? Was it a deer eating a bird?
Probably both. Um, I don't recall any cows, but I think there have been instances of cows eating carcasses. Well,
They
okay,
eat a lot of bugs.
not including mad cow disease, but, bugs. Oh, yeah, they're definitely eating a lot of bugs. Let's see. So, um, Tyrannosaurus probably ate smaller animals, including insects, in addition to vegetation. The insect exoskeletons in early tetrapods' diets may have paved the way for stem amniotes like Tyrannosaurus to be able to crush and process tough plant materials. Also, digesting the exoskeletons probably wasn't, I'm guessing, too hard for these early terrestrial carnivores. to feed on, and even this omnivore technically, um, because they were already adapted for feeding on the exoskeletons of many of the marine arthropods existed in the ocean, and even, being able to somewhat digest the fish scales of the different species of fish that they were feeding on. So, it's not surprising, I mean, it's quite expected that they would be eating the insects and efficiently digesting them, but it is interesting how it all of a sudden decided to start feeding on vegetation. Now, let's see. So, um okay, what's more, digesting the bodies of plant-eating insects may have given early tetrapods gut flora and microbes they would need to process plants. Oh, my question is, how do the insects start eating plants now? Let's
I
see.
think they were just copying the, Protoceratops.
Yeah, but the Proceratops was later in time.
We know they weren't copying Dimetrodon.
Um,
He was snapping off the heads of the,
yeah, Diplocalus amphibians. In addition to shedding light on the origins of herbivory, research could also provide insights into what happens when plant-eating animals are faced with the destruction of those plants. Tyrannosaurus lived near the end of the Carboniferous period when the planet underwent a period of climate change. Well, I mean, there have been many areas in prehistory. There are wide ranges of different changes in climates occurring. And, um, especially during this time, all of a sudden you had it where most of the earth was a very humid place. In fact, you could say it was almost like a massive global humid swamp, and it didn't also really cool down at all. All of a sudden, there was this massive transition of dry areas, and all of a sudden you had it where the swamps were disappearing, different types of forests, open areas were emerging, not grasslands that went for a long time, like even after the dinosaurs, but different, much more landscapes, deserts started appearing, and this is going to be an immense challenge for, different animals to adapt, and,
I asked in the chat, basically name your favorite dinosaur, and Akita Bear said Velociraptor.
um, that's great. It's definitely a very it's lethal for the 300-pound animals in the region, but outside of that, it would get smushed. So, at the end of the Carboniferous, the
Floppy
rainforest,
Rabbit said, "I have no idea. You keep bringing up so many new ones."
um yeah, well, I mean, we're talking about a 30-pound or 12-kilogram animal, so, even it has to be careful with its large sheep or bighorn sheep-sized prey items. So let's see. At the end of the Carboniferous, the rainforest ecosystems collapsed, and we had a period of global warming. Oh, it was much more than that. You can't just necessarily say that, it was just warming that was occurring. You're having it where massive dry spells are happening, and, I would think to an extent, guess I have to take a look into it, but I thought there was a certain area, at least in the Permian, maybe I'm thinking later into the period where there was global cooling to an extent. But, um, and it's interesting, it's mentioning rainforest, it didn't mention swamp. That's what the Carboniferous is known for, is swamp. Rainforest, nothing like today. These types of trees hadn't evolved yet. The lineage of animals that Tyrannosaurus belongs to didn't do very well. This could be a data point to the bigger picture of what happens to plant-eating animals when climate change rapidly alters their ecosystems and the plants that can grow there. Hmm. Oh, that's it. Interesting. We're going to take a 2-minute break. We'll be right back. Okay. Let's head over to the next video. Hmm. Oh no. What happened with the lions in oh gosh, where are we? In the Ngorongoro crater over in northern Tanzania, adjacent to the Serengeti ecosystem. Oh, whoa, that was a tumble.
Man,
Oh,
I'm outta here.
yeah, it's too far.
There's a bunch of people watching.
Oh wow. Even the zebras in the distance were watching, like, oh, um, that was a good training session.
One more time,
It's
and
almost like it's a training session for the zebras because look off to the right. And a second, look, see them? I see, he completed his training. Gosh, the lions are being used. This is horrible. So, I mean, I guess it's not surprising. That's what happens when you don't have very much genetic variety in this instance. So, um,
oh, yeah, I think I did a lot of prehistoric. This is a prehistoric.
the reason I say that is because when it comes to the lions in the Ngorongoro crater, they do not have, or they've been cut off from other lion populations. So they're quite inbred. It's real unfortunate because you have where many get quite sick. Really don't understand. I guess it's just a bit of an experiment when it comes to that population. So, heading to the next article from phys.org. New record of a great white shark in Spain sparks 160-year review. Well, let's see what's going on. Close up of the juvenile great white shark. Oh, seems healthy. Good chipped tooth. Besides that, on April 20th, 2023, a juvenile great white shark, the species Carcharodon carcharis, measuring approximately 210 centimeters. Uh, I think that's somewhere around 7 feet and weighing between 80 to 90 kilograms. Okay, so this is around what, 200 pounds?
It's 6.88 feet. Well, actually 6.89 if rounded, which would be 6.9.
And was incidentally caught by local fishermen off the coast of the Eastern Peninsula within the Spanish exclusive economic zone. This rare encounter prompted researchers to dive deep into past records spanning from 1862 to 2023, compiling an extensive review now published in the open access journal Acta Etiologica et Classificatoria.
That doesn't seem very big.
Oh, no, no, no. This is not a large great white shark. It's a juvenile. I wonder how old he is. The accidental capture contextualized within a review of records spanning 160 years revealed that while the Mediterranean great white shark remains as an elusive ghost population, it maintains a continued presence in these waters. Currently, the species is listed as vulnerable on the IUCN Red List with a declining population trend. That seems to be with most great white shark populations. There's a very short supply of them, somewhere between 1,800 to 4,000 individuals. Determining the presence of juvenile individuals is of particular importance, said Jose Carlos Paez, the study's lead researcher. The occurrence of juvenile specimens raises the question whether active reproduction may be occurring in the region. Oh, here's the shark. Got him, got him.
Got a big nose.
Yeah, he does.
Wait, we gonna play it?
Oh, yeah, sure. This is him. It's quick, though. Oh, is he alive?
I think so. They're just holding him. Are well,
I don't think he's well, hmm, maybe he's out of it? Let's see. So through the examination of records, this study confirms continued, um, or though sporadic presence of white sharks in Spanish Mediterranean waters. This research highlights a persistent but infrequent occurrence, with sightings remaining an exceptional event. Citing H.P. Lovecraft's famous observation that the oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown, he emphasizes that scientific clarity is the best remedy. By shedding light on the biology and ecology of the great white shark, research can help replace unfounded myths with genuine understanding. Okay, is there anything else specifically about what's going on here with great white shark? Because it seems to be a bit repetitive. Oh, come on! That was, that was not pleasing. Let's head over to the next video. Sheesh. Oh, okay, this was from a couple years back. So this is Kodiak over, I think on Kodiak Island specifically. Trying to capture some food. Oh, you got one.
So, are they swimming upstream? That's how he's able to do that?
Yep.
So you can literally just see it there in the water.
Yeah, all of the salmon, they swim upstream. Well, when they're fully mature and going to their spawning grounds.
But I meant he's moving that's why he's just not moving real fast. You can just see it.
Yeah, it seems to be in a good, fishing spot.
Just the ability to see through the water like that with the water rushing is amazing.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's like maybe June. He doesn't seem to have too much weight on him. So, heading to the next, article from MSN.com. Zoo sparks fury after calling 12 baboons over space. Whoa, wait. Whoa, okay.
Wait, culling is what?
Euthanizing, killing. You like giving them to the lions? 12 baboons were shot dead at a German zoo because there was not enough space in their enclosure. Um, anyway, Tiergarten Nuremberg Zoo has sparked outcry from animal rights groups after calling the healthy animals and feeding them to predators. Well, I mean, it is very efficient use of the meat. It's a baboon. Lions will regularly eat baboons. Animal rights groups fear that apes and monkeys could be called in the UK as zoos struggle with overpopulation.
Oh, baboons eat other animals too?
Oh yeah, baboons. Oh yeah, they're terrible. they'll eat some baby gazelles alive. Like they'll even go after baby wildebeest, maybe even zebras if they can.
They
Probably less likely a foal,
I
but
don't even kill them. They just
zebra itself.
tear them apart.
Yeah. They are quite carnivorous, but they munch on a lot of food as well. Let's see. I didn't know about this overpopulation of different primates in the UK. That's interesting. Or maybe different areas of Western Europe in general. Guinea baboons that continue to breed and breed despite the zoo implanting contraceptives in the female.
Jesus.
Let's see. As the number of animals reached over 40, which is 25 more than the supposed limits inside the complex, wow, they began to fight more. So, it's definitely inter-group fighting and I guess leading to killing. Yeah, they did it so there wasn't a bunch of carnage going on in, their own exhibit. It's immense. Um, okay.
We're protesting animals that will kill other animals and tear them apart tear them apart while they're still living.
Yeah, and I mean, they do this with chimps. Yeah, chimps are pretty even bonobos can be kind of violent too. The zoo said they had no option to kill the baboons after no alternative housing could be found, despite other zoos offering to take them on. Huh?
What?
That would mean that the zoos
That
would
was
be able to take them in.
contradictive.
And it sounds like this has also been happening a lot with, different zoos, especially in Western Europe. Like, there was that zoo over in Denmark that had that, they had a brother and a sister giraffe. And the problem is that they were both, sexually mature, and the female or the sister was going into heat, and they didn't want inbreeding occurring, and nobody was willing to take in the male giraffe, so they euthanized it. They cut it up and gave it to the lions. So let's see. The baboons were then shot individually with the bullets. Funny how that's stated. The
The bullets? What? Wait, I didn't where's
didn't even
that?
give us the type of bullet. Um, what? It's the second sentence. So the
Oh,
females
shot with a bullet.
why, did I say something
You
else?
said the bullet.
Oh.
So I was like, "The bullet?"
The females were first examined under anesthesia to check if they were pregnant, a process which killed 2 females before they would have been shot. Wow, okay. There are not 26 alive baboons left, still 3 too many. Wait, there are not 26 alive baboons left, still 3 too many? Something confusing about that sentence.
Or not 26.
Uh, I'm going to keep going,
That
but
doesn't even make sense.
Um, the MSN's got grammar problems, comprehension problems. The zoo's director, Doug Inc., called the culling a legitimate last resort to preserve the population after years-long consideration of how to solve the problem. But animal rights groups are up in arms over the decision after many chained themselves, oh my gosh, to the baboon enclosure over the weekend. Uh, Even they have to be looking at you like they've got higher IQ because, well, why oh my gosh. Protesters climbed oh my gosh, over the zoo's fence on Tuesday after it closed for a day. Now, the Tiergarten Nuremberg faces the prospect of criminal investigation after 100 criminal complaints were received by the city's prosecutor's office.
What happened if one of those people went in with the 26 baboons?
Yeah, probably not making it out. Those guys are tough. We're talking about, primates that can weigh over, 100, 110 pounds or a little over, 50 40 to 50 kilograms. Now granted, it also depends on the species, but southern sub-Saharan baboons are tough individuals. Nuremberg Zoo is not the only one to kill healthy animals. Many zoos specifically breed animals for feeding to lions, tigers, and other large carnivores. Oh, I didn't know that. They do? We just say wanted so occasionally they can have a giraffe or, uh, definitely not an elephant, I think. Um, oh, let's see. Who else? Who would you be breeding? I don't know, capybara? No.
Hey, don't do that to them.
I'm trying to think who else
Raccoons.
that's weird, but yeah, I guess that could work. I'm not sure. The German Animal Welfare Association calls it common practice for surplus zoo animals to be killed and given to other animals to munch on. This is funny. Laura Walton, campaigns manager at Freedom for Animals, told Metro that healthy animals are routinely killed across the zoo industry when they're deemed surplus to requirements. But what animals are they breeding? I mean, I gotta be honest, okay, it's not Cape Buffalo. I really wonder. Chris Lewis. Now, I will say though, I mean, I would prefer this over a large area and not confined in a small zoo. I mean, unless they give the whole, well, it depends on the size of the zoo, but just there's some out there only like 20 acres or 50, but even they don't give very much space to the animals in certain areas. But I have no idea when it comes to these zoos. So this is a first. I haven't heard of this. Chris Lewis, Born Free's captivity research and policy manager, told Metro he feared the tragic situation at Tire Park in Nuremberg to be repeated in UK zoos due to overpopulation. Okay, and what are you going to do with those baboons or the other primates? Friendly animals in zoos are treated as commodities that are replaceable. Okay, Lewis said zoos, as well as those in Europe, are struggling. The mainland Europe, continental Europe is what he's referring to, because the British Isles or the UK's island are struggling with too many male orangutans, chimpanzees, and other monkeys in their breeding programs. Well, I'm guessing this is for conservation of those specific animals, not being fed to the lions, I think. But that is odd. Now, I do wonder if there's certain rules or laws being enforced to prevent them from moving these primates, because there are a lot of um, restrictions that do not make any sense when it comes to breeding or just the conservation in general. Let's see. He
But
added,
but turning them into meals, that's okay.
yeah, I mean, you could say it's somewhat natural for a tiger or a lion to be munching on any of these guys, but yeah, that's too far. He added they are struggling with where to put them. One of the options is that they may face a future where they are called as well. I will say though, if they are going to put it down, it's simple. just a quick, and that's it.
Well, they probably can't drug them to put them down because they don't want the other animal eating the drugs.
Well, yeah, that too. But yeah, it's simple. He said this overpopulation is being caused because zoos are housing these species in social structures not replicated in the wild. Well, obviously. Okay, these aren't baboons. Well, technically, they're a different species. These are gelatos over in Ethiopia. But
They look like they're
uh,
all hiding.
yeah,
They're coming for us.
I don't know what's going on there. I think they're just sleeping somewhat. The European Association of Zoos and Aquaria,
With their eyes open?
EAZA, or just wanted someone to sleep. He looks like he just woke up. They're a bit, they're not necessarily startled. They look somewhat surprised and a bit intrigued,
Don't
slightly
throw us to
annoyed.
the lions.
There's a child here like, "Wait, did I hear that you guys are giving out
Oh, so
free Ethiopian grasses?" They do much on this grass. Okay, let's see. Which coordinates the breeding program in Europe, permits zoos to cull animals under a number of conditions. This includes when an animal's population's demographic or genetic viability is at risk, when an animal is disruptive to the social group or poses a threat to human safety. Let's see. The viability of the overall population may, under certain conditions, take precedence over the right to life of a specific individual animal. Guinea baboons are endangered animals, with around 280 living in 10 European zoos. Oh, these are West African baboons. These aren't Southern Sub-Saharan African baboons. Let's see. So they live in the wild across countries: Senegal, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Mali. But taking the animals back to Africa was not an option. They'd introduced because they'd introduced germs that would have killed off the already wild baboons. Oh, so they were immune to.
they couldn't put them back.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I guess that's another thing. Yeah. What else are you going to do?
How
Nobody's willing to take them in.
how do you put them back anyway? Because if they've been living there their whole lives, they don't know how to hunt.
Oh, yeah. They haven't been rehabilitated. So yeah, that's a big issue. Interesting. Um, hmm. Really am wondering when it came to the breeding other animals for food, because I thought it was just maybe cows, horses, pigs that are donated to them, but that's pretty much it. When it came to especially carnivores, not something doesn't make sense about that. Okay, well, heading on to another more trail camera footage from the Voyagers Wolf Project over in Minnesota. So let's see what's going on here. Seems to be a wolf pack. Not sure which pack specifically. Oh, there's four big necks of the Northwood, mm, and they're off. Oh, there's a group of pups. Oh, I think I remember this from a little further back, unless
That's a
this was
lot of
last year.
pups. That mother's gotta be exhausted.
Yep, definitely have to get in a lot of deer and moose. That's it. Hmm. That was a good looking lynx and good looking black wolf.
I like how it stops right at the camera.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a somewhat of a fishing wolf too.
Oh,
Not sure exactly
that
what he
wasn't a
got.
little fish it caught either.
And it
That
tends to be just associated
that was funny.
with wolves over in Southeast Alaska or British Columbia. And, like,
This
fishing
little guy.
wolves. Oh yeah, he's howling.
I wonder if he sounds like, "Woo."
Probably. A bit of a short howl. There's a cinnamon brown black bear. He tripped a little bit.
Uh,
Oh yeah, they're along the beaver dam.
Wait, this is a beaver dam?
Yep. Yeah, where they're laying. I think they just ate something or he got into a fight. That seems to be a healthy cougar. Oh, here's a pack. I still think that's a beaver dam.
I like how they're not worried about walking on the ice.
You got the camera.
That was funny. Her mother didn't realize it.
Yeah, she's just munching on certain grasses. There's probably flowers in the area. They do love dandelions.
Play with me. Wait, camera. He attacked it twice. And there we go again.
He's just howling. I think it's a fast motion.
Yeah, I don't think they move like that. That would be very strange.
Yeah, even their trotting gait is a bit slower. So it's probably during the summer. He doesn't seem to be very or have very dense fur
I just realized he was howling. Like, did it
without a collar.
freeze?
Oh, and this one's tagged snowing, so, this could be December.
Uh-oh, they're gonna see me and tag me. Yep, the others are waiting back. We don't wanna be at the camera.
Might have been tracking moose. Uh, I mean, they'll go after white-tailed deer too.
Do they wipe their paws off?
Maybe somewhat. Okay, so from the times.com UK, more beavers released, but critics say it's too damn slow to rewild England. Damn. Uh-huh. Environmentalists criticize Labor's slow and expensive rewilding project as a bubbling bugger up.
Betting it's a labbers. Lubber.
Oh, here's one of the beavers. It's the Eurasian beaver.
Oh, he's so cute. Wait, now do they prefer leaves or do they prefer wood?
Well, they're going to get more nutrition out of different types of leaves from the trees that they're feeding on. They'll also munch on occasionally different species, different types of fruit, and they're occasionally omnivorous. So they might even go after different species of crustaceans, eat prey on or scavenge from corpses on land. Not so much prey on like small mammals, and might even go after fish occasionally. So they are omnivores, but mostly herbivorous, and they will feed on wood too. So on a soggy February morning at Knepp Estate in West Sussex, it is hard to avoid signs of beavers. Branches have been dammed across the end of Hammer Pond, holding back water upstream. The distinctive pencil-shaped remains of trunks and felled trees abound. One of the bulky rodents lodges stands by the water edge, like a sturdy block or bivouac. Most of the estate's beavers were meant to stay in a 2-hectare fenced area. However, some escaped in April and now move between the enclosure and former farmland. 2 more colonies are due to be released in southwest England within days, with the blessing of the government. Okay, well, here's one trail camera back in spring of 2023 in April.
Well, he has to be controlled by the government, shouldn't he get a vote?
Yeah. They're the
He's
only
even building.
yeah, I'm guessing he's repairing his dam. They consistently have to, um just go over and there you will have it where certain areas of the dam might have it where a leak ran through or cut through, and they will quickly assess that situation. They're the only
No, they're
sanctioned.
more efficient than the government.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You damage their dam, they will get right back to it. They're the only sanctioned set since the first legally released pair made a wet woodland in Dorset near their home almost a year ago. Although ministers want plaudits from conservationists for opening the door to legal releases after years of dithering by the former Tory government, there is mounting frustration at the rollout's pace and cost. Okay, let's see what's going on with the releasement. Derek Gow and also their behavior. Derek Gow, an ecologist and species reintroduction expert, said it really is a typical British bumbling bugger up, referring to the A69 licenses that have to be granted from the regulator Natural England for releasing the beavers.
You know what a bugger up is? Like a screw up, an F up.
Oh. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I've heard of it. Maybe from Australia.
I've only heard of it, maybe.
Huh. It's a lot of happy, clappy stuff. An image of something's happening, but they say regulators are incredibly pedantic and incredibly slow. If we're looking to recover nature, you can't do it without this animal that holds back water. It's the first building block. Yeah, wow. Look at all these trees they've been taking down and the distinct bite marks too.
They're clean.
Yeah, yeah, they're pretty good. Gao wants to see more of a Bavarian style model, releasing the animals faster while authorities focus instead on beaver officers, response hotline for farmers. Advocates of beavers, which were hunted to extinction in England about 5 centuries ago, said they helped to strip pollutants out of rivers, created habitat for frogs, and made landscapes more sponge-like, reducing flood risk overall. Yeah, sponge-like means the ground is now very absorbent. Also, the different grasses in the area will help with that too.
That's what you said prairie grasses do here?
Oh, yeah, definitely with different areas, especially along the of America, especially in, like, different parts of Texas, Louisiana, Florida. You would have had even South Carolina, North Carolina, a little bit further north, would have been vast areas of coastal grassland that would have prevented these massive hurricanes or even floods from occurring because of also their immense root structures that could extend over, um, like 2 meters or 6.5 feet underground. So let's see. Um, however, they can also cause unwanted localized floods, a key reason some farmers are opposed to them. Now, they do make their own marshes or ponds. As he walked past the beaver cut remains of willow trees at Matt Phelps, the estate's lead ecologist, agreed with Gow. It's very slow, very onerous, very long-winded. Onerous, onerous. The estate's late borough, better known as Isabella Tree, and the author of the book Wilding, said the process amounted to a delaying tactic. This is doing nothing to allay the fears of farmers and others who want to know where they stand and what they can practically do if the beaver comes onto their land and causes problems such as damming irrigation ditches. Wow. Well, that's an open dam, or they're starting to build it. Yeah, I think that's a dam's got a bit of an issue. It's going to, require some fixing. Yeah, he's standing on it.
How many of them are working on it?
Yeah, it's a big question. Tends to be a single family. Oh, wow.
Wait, one family builds the entire dam?
Yep. So, let's see. Hmm. So, legal releases only began last year. Illegal ones started around 2014. The government has estimated there are about 500 beavers in the wild in England. Oh, well, that's not very many.
How many do we have?
Well, I guess if you're not including Canada, I'd say maybe around 8 million. So let's see, but Gal put the figure at about 4,000. Oh, that's definitely a better number to hear. Tree said the release regime was out of sync with the fact beavers are spreading across southern England by themselves. Wildlife trusts, which have about 250 beavers in enclosures, hope to have 7 licenses approved this year, up from none so far. Angelica von Heimendahl, the group's beaver reintroduction manager, said a good outcome would be more than 200 animals released over the next 2 years, but admitted that the jury was still out on the license's success. So, wow, okay, that's definitely a, huh, that's definitely a bit of a beaver dam. So the water is just coming from the ditch? Interesting. So it's just runoff?
How
Water
would
is
you
backed up on Hammer Pond after beavers built a dam. Oh, okay, they created this. Is this from them too? Hmm. So Matt Hurd, director for National Delivery at Natural England, said he welcomed the enthusiasm of groups expressing an interest in wild releases. The foundation for long-term coexistence comes from well-planned, collaborative projects built on engagement and trust. We are committed to getting it right for nature and communities. Whether the government streamlines the legal releases may not matter, given beavers' success in the wild. Beavers are taking matters into their own hands and rewilding themselves. And that's it. Okay. Um, I guess that's just beavers. I mean, putting
beavers
aside,
being beavers?
yeah, putting aside the reintroduction and everything.
But
Yeah, it's just
500 or two even 4,000.
yeah, technically it's not very many, even
Yeah,
for
wait, you said we have how many?
8 million. Yeah, even for what 35,000 square miles or pushing somewhere around 50, 55,000 square kilometers. Yeah, it's still not a lot. Okay, so, let's see. Heading to more trail camera footage from the Voyager's Wolf Project.
Since past summer.
This isn't the same one from earlier, is it?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Oh,
Um, yeah, we saw these 2 males,
oh,
unless there's more footage. Yeah, it's the same thing.
oh, it is?
Mm. Yep. Yeah, we saw that doe run past it.
Oh, my double.
Okay, so heading to the final article from IFLscience.com. 125 million-year-old fossilized skin reveals juvenile dinosaur that was spiky like a hedgehog. You think echidnas and porcupines invented the whole concept? We're talking about dinosaurs. I think if anybody knows a handful of things about these creatures, they've heard of the ankylosaurs, and the nodosaurs, and the stegosaurus, or maybe ankylosaurus. So, same place during the early Cretaceous. So let's take a look. An ornithopod. It looks like a hadrosaur too, but hadrosaurs hadn't evolved yet. This would have been one of the earlier species of iguanodonted. He's got possibly feathers. Well, let's see. Species of iguanodontian dinosaur has been revealed to have been covered in spines more like those of some mammals than anything seen before in dinosaurs. That's not true. Um, Now this is new when it comes to this ornithopods in general. I mean, this is quite shocking, but ceratopsians like Triceratops have been found with certain holes inside their skin that could possibly lead to them having porcupine quill-like feathers. So this isn't necessarily new to have been found over in dinosaurs. Now, maybe the distinctive kind, and also on iguanodontians, it is. Since the only evidence we have of this sort of protection comes from juvenile, we can't rule out the possibility that this species put away its quills when it grew up, but it would have been a puzzling move. Yeah, considering that could help you with killing off attacks from different predators. Life was hard for Cretaceous herbivores, and a defense mechanism could be the difference between grandchildren and death. So it's not surprising that evolution experimented with plenty of approaches. Ankylosaur's tank-like armor and Stegosaur's sharp plates are famous, but there were probably other defenses that we don't know about because they didn't fossilize well. Oh, that is something to take into account. There's the risk of these feathers quickly decaying. So, under more typical conditions, a fossil found at Lamanggu in Liaoning province. Of course, it's coming from China. Listen, it's just that, it'd be nice to see if the United States had more feathered reservations. There's a lot of them, they come from China. Might have looked like plenty of other members of the widespread Iguanodontia group, since its bones and teeth don't look unusual. Fortunately, however, well, they're very the teeth of iguanodontians are very distinct from other types of dinosaurs. Even the ceratopsians, which could somewhat chew, is still very inefficient compared to certain modern day mammals or hadrosaurs or iguanodontians themselves. It's a very distinct look. Um, never, never seen somebody show or write. It doesn't look unusual. If you said for one, then it would make sense. Like iguanodontian. Fortunately, however, this is a rare case where the environment in which the specimen died also preserved its skin, and that is indeed remarkable. Some Iguanodontia skin has been preserved, but mostly from late Cretaceous hadrosaurs. True, but we have found some from different species of earlier Iguanodontids as well, or the hadrosaurs' ancestors. Earlier in the dinosaurs' reign, the best that had been available were the imprints of small patches of scales. So when a team led by Hyundong Huang of Huani
Well, we definitely know we're in China now.
and Hawaii, Geological Museum found an astonishingly preserved imprint in the 125 million-year-old Yixian Formation. Knew they had something special. New species has been named Hualong Dongai, with the genus translating to spiny dragon in Chinese. The species name honors Dong Ziming, a leading paleontologist who died in 2024. Oh, looking at the preserved individual, whoa, that is a very well preserved specimen. I mean, obviously, yeah, it's been cut to different pieces, but it's good to see. It might not be the most puzzling jigsaw puzzle, but the imprint of how long Dongai displayed at the Huani Geological Museum in Haifi, China may be one of the most scientifically rewarding. Oh, yeah. It's really good to see. It's very much intact. The specimen was 2.45 meters or 8 feet long from the snout to tail, but its vertebrae were not fused, indicating it was still young and growing. Although we can't know how big it had the potential to grow, the authors point to some local species that might have been relative, which grew to 3 meters or 10 feet and 5 to 5.5 meters or 16 to 18 feet, respectively. Huh. So this seems to be well, it's pointing to relatives. I was thinking of just the adults of the species. I'm like, seems a bit small. But at this point, actually earlier on, like 10 million years prior, you had iguanodon, which could reach over 33 feet in length or 10 meters and weigh up to 5 tons or possibly more. So maybe this was like a medium-sized species of iguanodontid. Meanwhile, European iguanodontians at the same time were growing much larger. Okay, I also forget we're over in Asia, so we're not going to have at this point as large of iguanodontians. Probably wouldn't show up until later in the Cretaceous, well, early Cretaceous, and then definitely larger hadrosaurs in late Cretaceous. So definitely seeing larger species at least around 100 million years ago. Skin reveals two types of scales that resemble those of many modern reptiles, but differ from preserved hadrosaurids and overlapping on the tail. That is interesting. The body scales do not overlap, making them more similar to other dinosaurs. More significantly, the scales are mixed with spikes that are hollow and almost cylindrical in shape. Although some non-avian dinosaurs developed proto-feathers and certain lizards use scaly spines for protection, these appear to be so different from each other that Huang's team thinks they evolved independently. Hmm. Yeah, it is interesting. Now, you also are talking about a separate group of dinosaurs compared to what the birds came from, and even the other feathered dinosaurs. So, I'm not including the ceratopsians. So, these iguanodontids and ceratopsians, they both are derived from the Ornithischia lineage of dinosaurs, whereas the birds, the feathered dromaeosaurs, the theropods in general, is what the birds derive from, and the dromaeosaurs are members of Saurischiae. So, this is quite interesting. Let's see. Um, Most of the spines are very small, just 2 to 3 millimeters or zero point zero 0.08 to 0.12 inches. But these are mixed with longer ones, the longest preserved spike being 44.2 millimeters or 1.7 inches long and 7.8 millimeters or zero point 0.3 inches wide at the base. Wow. Despite this large difference in size, they all have the same simple shape. Spiky mammals' defenses have a similar composition to hair. It is the material that formed the scales that has been pressed into a second roll, making up the spines. Well, that was kind of random how the mammal's defenses that they technically are hair. They're just confined to create the quill. The quill is essentially a very thick layer of keratin, and hair is just a thinner layer. So let's see. Unusual body formations in extinct species are usually attributed to protection against predators, mate attraction, and thermal regulation, or maintaining or shedding heat. In this case, the authors favor the first explanation, although they say that the climate of the location possibly made keeping warm a secondary benefit. They also speculate the spines were used to sense the environment. Snakes use bristles to pick up vibrations. It does make me wonder if the Cretaceous was at this point experiencing a bit of a cooling event, especially over in Asia. Most of the known predators H. dongai would have had to face were relatively small, with mouths vulnerable to spikes like these. These defenses did not necessarily provide impenetrable protection against theropod teeth and claws, but they made the prey more difficult and time consuming to kill and ingest, and consequently reduced the likelihood of successful ingestion. Larger spikes may also have served to warn off predators or attract mates. Um, well, I would also think that they might pluck them off like what predators might do to a porcupine. or maybe just focus on the areas where it isn't covered in spines, maybe the underbelly. So, so with this, are we seeing another video or okay? Well, thanks for joining, and we will is it Friday? Okay, we will see you Friday, and from 10 a.m. And from Prehistoric to Present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guy Live Daily News, and remember, nothing is better than all animals all the time.